One of my favorite guests when she was at Fox. Still a favorite guest of mine. KT McFarland. Good morning, Miss McFarland.
Well, good morning, Mr. Imus. I'm talking to you from the West Wing of the White House.
That's where your office is. How many steps are you from the Oval Office?
I would say about 20.
Pretty cool. Miss McFarland serving as assistant to the president and deputy national security advisor. And she, in her bio I got from her, she lists other people who have had the same job. General Colin Powell, General Al Haig, Bob Gates, but no Henry Kissinger on your list.
No, and he had the job as National Security Advisor. I'm the Deputy National Security Advisor. But I will tell you that my first phone call in this new job on January 20th was to Henry Kissinger, who was my first boss when I worked for him on the National Security Council. So what goes around comes around.
He's still got it pretty much together, doesn't he? I mean, he's like 90, isn't he?
He's 93, and he's I think better than ever because at that age he looks at the big perspective of history. He doesn't sweat the small stuff, the headlines of the day. And he's also a couple of times a year goes around the world, sees foreign leaders. So he's probably better connected to what's really going on in Russia and China, in Europe than just about anybody else.
So before we get to cross-questioning you,
yes,
we have the president's first 100 days coming up on Saturday. What do you think?
I think he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, as you know, foreign policy is my thing. But I think if you look at the Syria strike, the diplomacy with the Chinese and the Japanese, I think it's pretty impressive. Now, he's got a lot of big decisions to make in the next several weeks. What do we do about Afghanistan? What do we do about South Asia in general? But I think so far he's done just a terrific job. And I was with him during the Syria strike. I was in the White House Situation Room with the Vice President while President Trump was in Florida with the Chinese summit. And in the middle of the Chinese summit, he was able to conduct the Syria strike, and he really did a great job. It was all him. He was decisive. He asked all the right questions, and then when it was time to turn it over to the military, he did.
Whose advice does he take? Not that you're going to tell me, but you might.
Well, I might. He takes, he's different than a lot of presidents. He takes advice from a number of different people. And to go in the Oval Office, which I do for a couple of hours every day, he will ask a question, but he'll pepper you with questions, sort of like you. He'll before you finish your sentence, he's on to the next sentence, and that's how he gets a lot of information from a lot of people. He filters it, makes decisions. But I would say General Mattis as the Secretary of Defense.
I love
and
him.
Increasingly, Rex Tillerson as the Secretary.
I love him, too.
He's terrific.
Wichita Falls, Texas. Don't get no fight started in here, Imus. I love him.
That's about right. But he doesn't wear cowboy boots.
It's all right. So you can be from Wichita Falls and not wear cowboy boots. That's all right.
And then General McMaster, who's the new National Security Advisor.
Well, let me make this observation. And I'm not trying to get you to say anything. In fact, I wouldn't want you to. But there were times that I thought that Trump was just not acting as a president, in my view, should. But now he appears to be doing so. And so this is maybe a fair question. How does he compare to other presidents? And you work for three of them. Yeah. How does he compare to them? Say Nixon or Reagan or Bush?
Different. Nixon came in with Kissinger, and he had already thought about foreign policy, specifically when he was vice president, and that was his thing. So he had a real conception of how he wanted to proceed. Reagan came in, and the first year of Reagan's presidency was not so successful with foreign policy. So Reagan also had thought about those things, but not like Nixon had. Trump is more like Reagan. He's got terrific instincts. He is common. He has a lot of common sense. He's not ideological. If something doesn't work, he'll give it up, try something else. So I would say in that way, he's more like Reagan. And then I think, like Reagan, Trump understands first you got to fix the economy, and if you don't fix the economy, you don't have economic growth. It's very hard to get what you want in foreign policy.
Has he been as tough with China as he suggested he was going to be during the campaign, in your view?
I think he's had, let me put it this way, he met with Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, in Mar-a-Lago, and they were supposed to have 10 minutes one-on-one, and then they were going to move to another room and have all the secretaries and ministers meet together. it didn't happen that way. The two presidents started for 10 minutes, and they were getting along so well and making such progress that they talked to each other for 2 hours, while the secretaries and the ministers were sort of doing something else. So I think that way he was able to tell the Chinese, here's our concerns. And the president said, North Korea is our main concern right now. And the Chinese were able to say what they wanted to do. And I think if you look at how everybody's behaved since that summit, I think there are some early signs that there may be a new relationship with the Chinese.
That was kind of a have you stopped beating your husband question, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a kind of stop beating your husband question, but I don't beat my husband.
I know, but I like the way you got out of that. That was pretty cool. So, pretty slick. So we're talking with KT McFarland, who is the assistant to the president and deputy national security advisor. Are you leaving that post?
How am I going to answer this one diplomatically?
Well, how about truthfully?
Let me put it this way. Also, the president hired me on Thanksgiving weekend, and so I worked on the transition and then came into the White House with him. And he and I have been in the last couple of weeks talking about something else I might do, and I'm very excited about it, and we both look at it in a really good way, but I have nothing to announce now, and it probably won't happen for a couple of weeks or months.
Does that mean Singapore, the ambassador to Singapore?
I cannot comment on that because...
Have you ever been to Singapore?
Yeah, but I have been to Singapore. Have you been to Singapore?
Of course not. Why do I go to Singapore? To do what?
Well, it's the financial capital of Asia.
I know.
It's the media capital of the Pacific. It's clean. It's beautiful, and it's a society that has done a lot with a little.
You got the main island and 63 other islands, something like that make up Singapore, and 75% of the population is Chinese. Do you speak Chinese?
My undergraduate degree was in Chinese, and my graduate
work
was yeah. But it's very. I mean, I can say hello, goodbye at this point. That was a long time ago. Let me tell you something really cool about Singapore.
Sure.
They have an air force, which is very good, but they have such a small territory. Where are they going to do practices?
Yeah.
So they keep part of their air fleet in other places and then practice in other places, other countries, so that if there's a crisis in that part of the world, in Singapore, they just go get their planes and come back.
So as you look around look around the White House,
yeah,
there from your office, 20 paces from the Oval Office, is pretty cool. Who seems to have the presidency here? Bannon, the son-in-law, who?
Well, I'd say everybody. I mean, like I said before, he gets his advice from a lot of different people, but look, he's totally in charge. There's nobody who's telling him what to do. President Trump is totally in charge, whether it's on the economy or the foreign policy or anything. He's a very decisive guy.
Do you like Bannon?
I do. I get along really well with him. I get along really well with Reince Priebus, and I get along very well with Jared Kushner. I've known them all before they came into the White House, and I think they're all different. Bannon is the sort of soul of the anti-establishment movement. Reince Priebus is more of an establishment guy because he came from the Republican National Committee, but he's a brilliant manager. And then Jared Kushner is a brilliant negotiator. So they all have different skills.
Not to patronize you, which I wouldn't do, but I running things, I'd leave you right where you are because I really think you're I've talked to a lot of people in my lifetime, but you're one of the smartest people I've ever talked to. So great judgment and a great sense of humor, and a great guest. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm blushing, but you can't see it.
KT McFarland here on the Imus Morning Program, coming up now on 10 minutes till the hour.